Well, welcome to another segment of our news. I'm Kent Adams. I hope you're having a good day. The other day, after Ozzy Knezovich, our sheriff, was in here, I had a chance to sit down and talk with Ozzy about Camp Hopeless, or whatever you want to call it. There are a number of names going around. There are a number of individuals that think they're doing good, and so on and so forth. And Ozzy and I had a chance to chat. I wanted to have a chat with his soon-to-be, I believe, I'm hoping, and I'm voting for, John Nowels, his undersheriff, and a really good guy. I've said this to you in private as well as I'm going to say it in public. Every time I meet you, I'm more impressed with your knowledge and your care for this community, John. It really shows.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Spent 25 years developing that, but being a member of this community for the last 48 and a half years.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, you're just a kid.
Right.
As I mentioned in the opening, I chatted with Ozzy about several things. And in fact, that was the first time he talked about moving the date from October something, I don't remember the date, to November 10th, I think?
November 10th.
Okay, I remembered. Okay. And so forth was on our program that day. And then later the rest of the media got around to mentioning it and so forth. And I've seen some of the feedback that's come. It's predominantly very strong pro Ozzy. And I mean that not just about him personally, but the fact that someone is finally stepping up. We've had a week back city council. We've had others in the community who just want to let things go on. We've had neighbors nearby that won't let their kids go out and play because they're 2 blocks or 3 blocks from this Camp Hope or whatever it's called and so forth. And I wanted to get your picture on all of this because you're the heir apparent, of course, to Ozzy. And so what are you hearing?
So I agree. Most of the feedback we're getting, and an overwhelming amount of the feedback we're getting, is that the public who has been, and particularly the neighborhood businesses, the people who live in those neighborhoods, they felt like no one has listened to their voice until now. And I want to be very clear, they feel like the Spokane Police Department has been there doing what they could do to help address the issue.
And this is not against at all.
This is not a law enforcement complaint.
No.
It is businesses and residents in and around that area that are saying, we've been subjected to this lawlessness for too long.
Yes.
Certainly everybody understands that these folks that are here, they do need help. They do need services.
Yes.
Whether they will actually are there to take advantage of them or not is a completely different and debatable topic. However, this community has been suffering under the existence of this camp for the last 10 months, and it has gotten worse, not better. And that's the feedback we're getting. I mean, just recently, obviously, the county is moving forward on the abatement process.
Okay.
And that requires, that we present evidence, to a court, to a judge, to show that the abatement needs to occur. So we have been out receiving declarations from businesses in the community, citizens in the community, and having them put in writing, a signed declaration saying, this has been my experience since this camp came into existence. My employees
have been harassed. Their cars have been harassed. Things have been stolen, those kinds of things.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Which, you have to go into court and show proof that there has been a negative impact.
Yes.
And I think in all of the rhetoric that's going around, and I talk to citizens groups about this, is it's all right to have a hierarchical value of what we need to do to address this issue. Yes, we do need to provide services to these folks, and I personally believe we shouldn't be providing services without some change of behavior in return for it. Good. It seems to me that they want to provide the services and then ask for the change in behavior, which any of us who have raised children know that doesn't work. It just doesn't. So that's my personal opinion, and I think the approach is probably not correct, and it's not going to have good outcomes. But we also now have to step up and say, listen, the priority for government should be to protect the safety and well-being of the people who are obeying the law.
Yes.
That there's nothing that says I, as a citizen, as a law-abiding citizen, should subject myself to or accept that I'm going to have criminal acts and antisocial behavior directed towards me and my neighborhood
And my family.
because somebody else has a right to do that to me.
Right.
That's wrong. It's incongruent with American values. It's incongruent with an orderly society. It doesn't work. And so really that's what the argument becomes. And I know we've had a lot of folks on the other side of the issue challenge Sheriff Knezovich, challenge everybody to come down and live in the conditions at Camp Hope.
Right.
As a way to justify the existence of it. And that's missing the entire point. What I would challenge those people, particularly I think Councilman Zappone challenged Sheriff Ozzie to come down and spend a night or a week, and I don't remember exactly what it was, in Camp Hope. Well, my challenge is to Councilman Zappone is, why don't you take 10 of those campers or 10 tents and put them in your backyard and live with them?
Yeah.
And everything that goes along with it
It's
for the
easy
next
for
10
everybody
months.
else to do it.
Well, the issue here isn't let's see how much discomfort we can subject ourselves to empathize with these folks. The issue is are you willing to subject yourself to the crime and the lawlessness in your neighborhood and your neighbors and your family because you think these folks need the service? And let's be honest, these folks are not receiving the services. They're not changing behavior. They're not moving on. If Camp Hope was being run effectively, run efficiently, and if these folks were not committing crimes, the neighborhood wouldn't be up in arms about it.
Right. Are you saying perhaps that the primary organization there isn't providing the services that they claim to be?
I cannot make that allegation, but what I'm saying is this.
Okay.
If the intent is to provide services, and we are expending a lot of money in these places, if the primary goal is to get these occupants into services to be treated for substance use disorder, to be treated for mental health disorder, and get them into permanent housing, it is clearly failing.
Okay. I think.
And we can talk a lot about, as the money funnels from the federal government to the state government through Empire Health Foundation and ultimately into, in this case, Jules Helping Hands and other service providers, the public needs to know there are indirect costs being assessed and fees assessed by every government agency and every provider that touches that money as a pass-through. So I know there's not anywhere near the amount of money as it should be dedicated to it is actually hitting the streets.
Well, I had a couple of council members on a few months back, and they were talking. We talked about the Camp Hope out there, and kind of the position was, well, it's out there. It's not downtown. It's not. Well, excuse me. It's still there. It's still not really helping people. I've heard that in the last day or so that the Jules Helping Hand or whatever the organization is. Funny, the most negative things I've gotten up until recently have come from my Democrat friends who talk about that organization, but they won't go public. But they'll tell me personally off the record of things. So, I think it's time for a station in town to do an investigative report on what's going on there too. Are we really getting the services and so forth? One of the things that Ozzie said, I know because of your schedule you haven't had a chance to see it yet, is that maybe we on the law and order side of things, we keep complaining that our voice doesn't get heard and so forth. Maybe it's time for us on November 10th or another date or two to go down and picket and complain and so forth, because the other side does that. They're really good at that, of getting people out, and then the cameras go away and they go home. Okay, but maybe it's time for some of us who believe in law and order and want to really help these people stand out and stand up.
Well, and I think And I don't know that they should picket at Camp Hope, but certainly city council meetings.
Okay, yeah.
Certainly in some of those other areas, the policymakers need to hear the voice
Right.
of the people.
Yeah.
I don't know that it would serve much of a purpose other than cause conflict for them to picket actually outside at Camp Hope. And,
Yeah.
and certainly, Julie Garcia and her organization, they have no responsibility or need, frankly, to answer to the general public, right? They're receiving monies to provide a service, and I think it's always good to audit and things like that to find out if the funds are being expended appropriately. But I will tell you, I have received messages through social media, and I have seen messages posted on social media where there are neighborhood groups who are talking about going down and picketing at city council and at city council meetings. The problem is, frankly,
and they think they're getting by with all this, don't they? The city council. They think they're not hearing the objections.
well, in my opinion, I think they feel like they're doing the right thing, but I think, in my opinion, they are completely ignoring the plight of the people who live in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
The neighborhood have been victimized by this camp and its existence, and 10 months has been way too long.
Yeah.
And frankly, the plan that is in place, and vaguely they're talking about in the next 6 weeks starting to place people, and it could take as much as 6 to 8 months. So putting it in the middle of next summer to completely empty the camp out is frankly untenable. It's unacceptable.
Yeah.
The resources that we have there, and nobody is saying there's no money to deal with it.
Yeah.
Nobody is saying there's a cash flow problem, right? And I think there's a bunch of different ways that this could be addressed temporarily. I mean, when COVID came around and we were having a shortage of hospital beds, it didn't take us very long to put up temporary hospital beds and temporary shelter beds for people who might have COVID and might not have a safe place to stay.
Right.
Didn't take long to do that.
Yeah.
But I think the reality of the conversation has to come back to this. We have open and available shelter beds, and it's debatable about whether we could have enough permanent shelter beds available by November 10th. Can we expand the capacity to take all of the members who are at Camp Hope?
Right.
But the fact of the matter is there's anywhere from, that it's debatable how many people are there, because we don't really know whether it's 300 or 600, about how many of them will actually leave and go to a shelter in the first place.
Right.
Because we know that there's 300 or 400 there today.
Right.
And we have shelter beds available over at the Trent facility.
Yes.
They don't want to go. And that's the truth.
Why?
Of
Too
the
many
matter.
restrictions?
Well,
you think?
Here's the thing. These folks want to be able to come and go as they please. They want to be able to be high, be intoxicated, which in the Trent shelter, that is allowed. It's a low barrier shelter, but it doesn't mean there's a no barrier.
Okay,
Right?
yes.
You can't just go shoot up and use drugs. You cannot, exhibit
There will be more
entirely
oversight there.
antisocial behavior, right? There are rules you have to follow.
Right.
And I think it was even said in a news article, one of the occupants said, well, we don't want to live that way. We've become accustomed to living outside, and we like living outside.
Yeah.
So this is no longer a service issue.
But not in my backyard.
This is a law and order issue. That person is truly trespassing and is telling us, well, we intend to keep trespassing, because it's lawful to camp on your own property if that's how you decide you want to live. But it's not lawful to camp on someone else's property and go out and commit crimes and we're calling them quality of life crimes, whether it's trespassing, throwing garbage out into the street, defecating, urinating in people's walkways and things like that. The theft to the businesses around this area is out of control. The damage that is being done to these businesses is in the tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's not lawful, and that's really what this issue comes down to.
Yeah.
We can build temporary shelters. We can erect them quickly. They did it in San Diego. We can do the same. We have to hold people accountable and say, listen, this has been provided for you. Let's move you there. If you don't want to go, then you can leave, but as soon as you commit a crime, we'll hold you accountable for it. If you leave and you don't go to a shelter and you don't commit a crime, then you are happy to go live your life.
Yeah.
And there will have no interactions with the police.
Right.
None at all.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's where this community has solidified.
Yeah.
They understand the issue. Some of the politicians and the politics involved, they don't really see it the same way, but that's the way we have to see it.
Yeah.
We, as law-abiding citizens, deserve law and order. We deserve to be able to go out and take our kids to the park,
Yes.
to take our kids to the school, to go to work, and not have to deal with this issue. It's where their rights don't supersede mine. A person who's breaking the law, who's violating social order, they don't have the right to disrupt mine.
They seem to have all this community support out there until now. I think now the community is standing up and saying, we want law and order. We want to help these people, and we want law and order, and we can have both.
Right, and let's tell the truth about what's really going on there.
Yeah.
I will tell you, I just before coming here, I got off the phone with a business owner, very close to Camp Hope.
Okay.
And this person runs several businesses all over the Spokane and Coeur d'Alene area. Has had a business there for 12 years.
Okay.
He has become concerned because he's hearing that he's not going to be able to insure his business in that area anymore.
Gosh, yes.
He will not be able to insure that business at all.
And stay in business.
And he said he
means.
can't stay in business
No.
if he can't provide insurance for the business. He has been subjected to tens of thousands of dollars of damage and loss. He's put on security cameras up around his business. He has watched as many as 40 people a day come through his business parking lot. They go through his dumpster. They throw trash all over everywhere. They break into the machines that hold money. They damage his property. And most recently, he had someone set fire to some items on his property. It took a couple days, and on camera, they watched the person go back towards Camp Hope after setting the fire. Fortunately, the police were able to identify that person and arrest him a couple days later.
Yeah.
But this business owner says, I watch the traffic all day. There is no doubt. There's no question that people are causing the damage to his business
And
are
where they're
coming
coming
from Camp Hope. He has video proof and video evidence, and he's provided us a declaration for the abatement.
Good.
This is a person who is a longtime business person who has been successful,
Yes.
knows how to run a business,
Yeah.
and the camp is absolutely destroying his ability to make a profit there and keep his business open.
Right.
That's all we need to hear. And he's not the only one.
No.
We sent out our deputies and detectives to do declarations last weekend, and it did not take us very long to get the 50 declarations out and to find out that they were being photocopied and sent around
To their friends.
to
and
their
so
friends.
it's-
Everybody like that. So we're going to probably get far more than we distributed. The public's tired.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
don't want to live
That's-
that way. And I had messages on my campaign email
Yes.
from someone who lives in that neighborhood who said, I can't afford to live in a nicer neighborhood. And this person even said, it's not that I've lived a perfect life. I can't. I've got a history. I've got a background. But my family's not safe here anymore because I don't want to live in this neighborhood
someone
anymore
who's
because
trying
of
to
what's
live.
going on in Camp Hope.
Yeah.
So this is someone who certainly would be empathetic to that plight.
Yeah.
But even he
fed up with
has
it.
said, please get us the declarations. I will give them to my grandmother who also lives in this neighborhood, my neighbors. We need this to stop. And I think the folks who are not wanting to resolve this quickly, they need to go out and talk to these community members. I think, we can be empathetic.
they
We
talk to
certainly
each
need to be
other.
empathetic, but go talk to the people who live in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
Go talk to the business owners who are losing money. And it's not just the small businesses who are losing money. The major corporations are losing money in that area. And it doesn't have to be that way. And how can the political message be, no, you need to endure that while we try to implement something that frankly hasn't worked for 10
Are
months?
you getting positive feedback as you campaign?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, I knew the answer to it. but
Well,
yeah,
and I'm here to tell you, people on the other side of my race have not supported what's going on with the sheriff, and frankly says that, well, I think what's been done now needs to continue, and that is the absolute wrong side of this. It is not representing the public, and as the sheriff. And this is why it was so easy when I got asked the question, do you support what Ozzy's doing here?
Yes.
Absolutely, emphatically, 100%. And why? Because the sheriff has to be the voice for the people.
Yep. Yep.
Has to be.
Law and order
And I
voice.
think some other elected officials, we're not listening and not taking into account what the law-abiding citizens, the tax-paying citizens, need to have happen here. And there's no excuse. Manpower is not an excuse. Resources are not an excuse. You know, leadership, which Sheriff Knezovich is displaying community leadership here. Leadership acts in the face of everything and every statistic, every fact that says, oh, you can't do this. Leadership is saying, we have to do this. We have to find a way. And we have found a way dozens and dozens of times over the last 12 years to do what we needed to do for our community.
John Nowels, thank you. Thank you for taking the time, because it does take time to run for office as undersheriff to be sheriff. It's an impact on family and so forth. I've met all of the candidates over the time. You have one opponent now. Not terribly impressed. That's my personal opinion, okay? You are the man. As I said at the beginning of the program, every time I meet you, I learn something new, and it's good for our community. That's what it's about. It's about my grandkids at this age, okay? All right.
It is.
Okay. Thank you, John Nowels. You
Appreciate
have my
it, Ken.
vote, okay? Thanks for watching, everybody.
Can you believe it was like 6 weeks ago that we drove by? Did it, babe? We did it. Now your eyes are all teary.
This is River Ridge Frame Shop, called Frame It Today, where we can take your art, customize it, and get it ready to hang on the wall. Here at River Ridge Hardware, 2803 West Garland.